You know, it's fascinating. We often focus on the usual suspects when we think about global tech powerhouses.
Silicon Valley, maybe China sometimes.
Exactly. But Southeast Asia, it's been, well, quietly building this digital economy. And it's shown some real surprising resilience, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah, who really stood out? If you look at the Q2 2020 GDP figures, I mean, it paints quite a picture.
It really does. You had Malaysia down, what, 17.1%, Indonesia also down 5.3%.
Right, pretty significant hits. But then Vietnam, they actually posted positive growth, 0.4%.
Which is stark when you compare it elsewhere, right? South Korea minus 3.3%, Taiwan minus 0.73%, Hong Kong took a big hit, minus 9%.
And even China, which recovered relatively quickly, was at 3.2% growth. So Vietnam's positive number, however small, was notable. Southeast Asia definitely showed something interesting there.
Absolutely. And that resilience, it seems deeply connected to this digital transformation that's happening, often in parallel, or maybe even learning from China's own tech story.
Yeah, it's more than just being neighbors. There's a real interconnectedness there. Shared growth patterns, tech influence, capital flow. It's becoming this distinct sphere.
And that's exactly what we want to dive into today. This complex relationship between Southeast Asian IT and China. People are talking about a new Chinese cultural and economic sphere emerging, specifically in tech.
Mm.
So our mission, really, for you listening, is to understand the key forces shaping Southeast Asia's digital future and, well, the undeniable role China is playing in it. It feels like watching a sequel almost, mirroring China's own rapid IT development.
Yeah, a key concept here, I think, is this idea of unbalanced development.
Right.
It's that China grew, right? Not everything moving at the same pace.
Right. Deliberately letting certain sectors, especially tech, just surge ahead.
And we're seeing echoes of that now in Southeast Asia. It's not the sort of balanced development model you might associate with, say, Japan's post-war growth.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Balanced versus unbalanced. Japan's model being more like a gentle slope, everything rising together.
Kind of, yeah. More uniform progress across different sectors of the economy.
Whereas the China model, and now maybe Southeast Asia, is more like, what, climbing a cliff face? You've got world-class tech right next door to very traditional businesses.
Exactly. You can have incredibly sophisticated apps and platforms flourishing alongside, very basic, rudimentary commerce. It creates a unique landscape.
Does that create specific problems like, I don't know, regulation struggles or cybersecurity gaps?
Oh, definitely. It's a huge challenge for governments to keep up. Regulation lags behind innovation. Cybersecurity is a massive concern when tech leaps forward so fast. And the digital divide, the gap between the haves and have-nots, can actually widen in this scenario, maybe more than in a balanced growth model.
So it's a faster climb, but maybe a more precarious one in some ways?
You could put it that way. It requires constant adaptation.
Okay, so what were the conditions on the ground in Southeast Asia that made it ripe for this kind of rapid tech-first growth, especially with China's influence nearby?
Well, one really fundamental piece is the traditional banking infrastructure, or rather the lack of it for many people.
Right, I saw some stats on that. Even in a place like Singapore, you'd think everyone has cards, but credit card ownership was under 50% back in 2017.
Yeah, World Bank data showed that. And in countries like Indonesia or the Philippines, it was much, much lower. Access to bank accounts, debit cards, credit cards, just not widespread for a huge chunk of the population.
And this is the crucial contrast, right? Mobile phones.
Exactly. Mobile phone penetration rates are incredibly high,
Yeah.
often well over 100% in many Southeast Asian countries.
Over 100%, how does that work?
People having multiple SIM cards, business phones, etc. But the point is, the mobile phone is the essential device. It's the primary infrastructure for communication, for information, and increasingly for business and finance.
So they kind of skipped the whole landline and desktop PC era in some ways, and skipped traditional banking too.
They leapfrogged, yeah.
Yeah.
Straight to mobile as the foundation.
Interesting. Now, there's this IMD World Digital Competitiveness Ranking. The 2019 one is quite telling. Yeah, the US, Singapore, Sweden at the top. No huge surprise there.
Right. But Japan, which we think of as a tech giant, was 22nd globally.
Yeah.
And only 6th in Asia.
And Malaysia was right behind Japan in those rankings, which is quite something.
It is. And that ranking looks at a lot. It assesses knowledge, technology, future readiness across, I think, 51 different metrics. Things like R&D, internet access, agility, talent.
And Japan's lowest scores were really low, weren't they? Things like international experience, opportunities and threats, business agility, big data analytics utilization, like 63rd out of 63?
Dead last in those specific categories. Lower than Mongolia, lower than Venezuela in those areas. It's quite startling, actually.
It really is. So how does this picture low banking access, super high mobile use, and maybe even some neighbors like Japan not being quite as digitally agile in certain ways, how does that all feed into the mobile payment boom?
Well, it creates the perfect conditions, doesn't it? If you have a huge population that can't easily use traditional banking, but everyone has a mobile phone.
Then mobile payments become the obvious solution to fill that gap.
Precisely. It's meeting a massive unmet need with a technology that's already ubiquitous.
So it started, I guess, with systems like Alipay and WeChat Pay coming in, mainly for Chinese tourists.
Yeah, that was the initial wedge. Tourists needed a way to pay easily using systems they were familiar with. That got the infrastructure starting to be built out, merchants getting QR code readers and so on.
But the real shift was when local players emerged, targeting the locals, the unbanked population.
Exactly. It wasn't just about copying China. It was about adapting the concept for local needs, making it work for people without bank accounts, maybe without even smartphones initially.
And how do they make that work? Making it super simple, right?
Very simple. Things like topping up your mobile wallet with cash at a local convenience store or a mobile phone shop, or withdrawing cash the same way, and using low-tech solutions like QR codes, which don't require fancy terminals.
You mentioned Telkomsel's T-Cash in Indonesia as an example.
Yeah, that's a great case study. Initially, they didn't even rely solely on smartphones or QR codes. They used these one-time processing numbers.
How did that work?
The user would get a code on their phone, even a basic feature phone, and give that number to the cashier to process the payment. A bit clunky maybe, but incredibly accessible.
Wow. So reaching people even without smartphones.
Exactly. Then, as smartphones became more common, they integrated QR codes, and now they're using NFC as well. It evolved with the technology available to their users. There's a good YouTube video showing the early system, actually.
That's real ground-up innovation. Okay, let's talk about one of the giants that grew out of this environment, Gojek in Indonesia.
Right. Started back in 2010, famously as a motorcycle taxi service in Jakarta.
Just trying to beat that insane traffic, basically.
Pretty much. A very practical solution. But the genius was how they leveraged that network.
Which led to GoPay in 2016.
Yeah, their mobile payment system, specifically designed for the unbanked. And their initial top-up method was really clever.
What was that?
Users could literally give cash to their Gojek driver, and the driver would credit their GoPay account electronically. The drivers acted like mobile ATMs.
That is incredibly resourceful, turning your workforce into a financial network.
It solved a huge problem. How do people get money into the digital system easily? And from that payment foundation,
They just exploded, didn't they? It wasn't just rides anymore.
no, it became this super app. Food delivery, grocery delivery, sending packages, medicine delivery, even instant e-commerce, all built on motorcycles, smartphones, and crucially, GoPay.
And they attracted serious investment, over $10 billion, I read.
Yeah, huge amounts.
Right.
And look at the investors: Tencent, JD.com from China, but also Google, Visa, a mix of global tech and finance seeing the potential. That investment isn't just cash, it's strategic partnerships, tech expertise.
Right. It shows the scale of ambition.
Yeah.
And it highlights this key difference, doesn't it? Smartphone payments aren't just cashless, they integrate everything.
That's the core point. It's not just replacing cash or card swipes, it's embedding the payment within the service. Ordering food, booking a ride, buying goods, the payment is seamless, part of the app flow.
Which then enables all these other services to flourish: delivery, local e-commerce, streaming.
Exactly. It creates a very sticky ecosystem. You live inside the app.
And this model, the centrality of mobile payments, that was key to China's own IT boom with Alipay and WeChat Pay, right?
Absolutely fundamental. They were the rails upon which so much of China's digital economy was built.
So Southeast Asian countries are consciously looking at that playbook.
Very much so. They see mobile payments and efficient logistics as the twin pillars. You need both to build that digital economy, especially given their starting point with banking and infrastructure.
Yeah.
They're learning from China's path.
Okay, let's bring in Grab. Based in Singapore, started 2012, also ride-hailing initially.
Very similar trajectory to Gojek. Launched GrabPay, expanded into food delivery around 2016, and then famously acquired Uber's entire Southeast Asian operation in 2018.
A huge consolidation move. And their investors are also a mix.
Yeah, really interesting. US VCs like GGV Capital, Tiger Global, but also major Chinese players: Hillhouse Capital, China Investment Corporation, Ping An, Didi Chuxing, and SoftBank, of course.
It really paints a picture of this interconnected web of capital and competition heavily involving Chinese firms.
No question, the money and the strategic influence are flowing significantly from China into these Southeast Asian tech giants.
Now, beyond the super apps, what about pure e-commerce platforms?
Also booming. You've got Tokopedia in Indonesia, started way back in 2009. Huge platform there, backed by SoftBank and notably Alibaba.
And Lazada? Singapore-based, but operates across the region.
Right, founded 2012. Also heavily backed by Alibaba now. They operate in multiple countries and have even adopted things like Alibaba's big Singles Day sales event.
Bringing those Chinese e-commerce phenomena directly into Southeast Asia.
And then there's Shopee, relatively newer, founded 2015 in Singapore. It's part of the SEA group.
SEA Group, they had that big IPO in 2017, right? And Tencent is a major backer there too.
Correct. So again, you see that Chinese tech giant influence. Shopee has become a massive player across the region, competing fiercely with Lazada.
And the success of all these e-commerce platforms hinges on those same two pillars we mentioned.
Absolutely. Widespread mobile payment adoption, making checkout easy, and increasingly sophisticated logistics networks to actually get the goods delivered efficiently.
It all ties together. Now, there's another big factor underpinning all this growth demographics, the population bonus.
Yes, that's a crucial piece of the puzzle. The population bonus refers to that period when a country has a relatively large proportion of its population in the working age bracket, typically 15 to 64.
More workers relative to dependents, basically, which should boost the economy.
Exactly. It means potentially higher productivity, more income, more consumption, more savings. It fuels economic growth. There was that chart you mentioned from the Databook International Labor Comparison 2018.
Right, showing the trend lines for different Asian countries. Japan peaked early and is declining.
China, South Korea, several others hit their peak working age ratio around 2015-2020 and are now seeing it start to decline as well.
But the chart showed a few countries projected to stay high for longer, right?
That's the key takeaway for future potential. India, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines are projected to maintain a high working age population ratio much further out, towards 2050.
Suggesting they still have a significant demographic tailwind for growth.
Potentially, yes. A longer window of this demographic advantage compared to East Asia.
And how does China fit into this demographic picture now? They use their bonus effectively.
They absolutely did. Leveraged it for decades of incredible growth. Now, as that bonus is fading, their big strategic push is using IT and digital transformation to shift the economy, to increase productivity before the demographic drag really kicks in.
Or a race against time, almost.
In a way. And that's the connection to Southeast Asia. Many countries there are also approaching the end of their peak bonus period, maybe a bit later than China, but they see the writing on the wall.
So they're looking at IT transformation as the way forward, learning from China's current push.
Exactly. How do you transition your economy when the demographic engine starts to slow down? IT looks like the answer. And Chinese companies and investors see this. They see a huge, young, growing market next door that's facing similar challenges and opportunities they understand well.
Makes sense why the investment flows are so strong. Now, within Southeast Asia, Vietnam seems like a bit of an outlier, a special case.
It really is interesting. For one thing, they enter that post-population bonus phase a bit earlier than some neighbors like Thailand.
But the bigger factor is probably the relationship with China, right? There's a history there.
A very long and often contentious history. This historical anti-China sentiment is still a tangible factor in Vietnam. It influences consumer behavior, business decisions, even government policy.
Leading to a preference for domestic products and services.
Generally, yes. There's a stronger buy Vietnamese sentiment than you might find elsewhere in the region regarding Chinese goods or services. And this has definitely impacted the IT sector.
How so? Made it harder for Chinese tech firms to gain traction.
It has. While Chinese goods are common, direct penetration by Chinese IT services like payments or social media has been more limited compared to other countries. And this has created space, or perhaps incentive, for local Vietnamese tech companies to grow and fill that void.
Like VNG, often called the Vietnamese Tencent.
Exactly. Founded back in 2004 by La Hong Min, who actually used to be an esports pro.
Really? From esports to tech CEO?
Yeah. And VNG has very consciously mirrored Tencent's business model. Social networking. Zalo is huge in Vietnam. Streaming, games, cloud services, and mobile payments. Zalo Pay. It's like a Vietnamese version of the Tencent ecosystem.
And they had that early success with a Chinese game, ironically.
Yes, Sword Heroes Love Story, a game licensed from Kingsoft in China. But V&G localized it brilliantly. They did this massive promotion, partnering with a local beer company, targeting gamers at esports events.
Clever marketing.
Hugely successful. It gave their gaming division, Game back then, something like 92% market share early on.
Wow. So they learned the model even using content from China initially, but built their own dominant local platform?
Precisely. They watched Tencent, saw what worked, and replicated it for the Vietnamese market. And interestingly, Tencent itself is now an investor in V&G.
Acknowledging their success, perhaps. Any other notable Vietnamese players?
Well, there's BCAF. They're trying to do something quite ambitious, compete directly with Chinese smartphone brands like OPPO, Xiaomi, Huawei, by making their own domestic smartphone, the B phone.
Taking on the giants. That's tough.
Very tough. But BCAF got some international attention in 2017. They claimed they could bypass Apple's Face ID using a 3D printed mask.
Oh, I remember hearing about that. Did it work?
They released a video showing it work, yeah. It generated buzz, showed some technical skill, even if it wasn't a practical hack. There's a YouTube clip of that, too.
So homegrown tech ambition is definitely there. What about Chinese payment systems like Alipay and WeChat Pay in Vietnam?
Vietnam's been quite strict. They've had concerns about tax evasion, Chinese tourists using Chinese payment systems linked to Chinese accounts, with the money potentially bypassing Vietnamese tax authorities. So there have been crackdowns, even temporary bans sometimes.
So Vietnam's path is different. Wary of direct Chinese dominance, fostering local champions.
But still, those local champions are clearly learning from, and in V&G's case, quite directly imitating Chinese tech strategies and business models. It's a complex relationship. They're rejecting direct control, but embracing the methods, in a way.
Okay, so pulling it all together, Southeast Asia is undergoing this massive digital shift. Mobile payments are the bedrock, logistics are catching up. China's influence through investment, technology, and its own development example is huge.
Undeniably. But it's not monolithic. You see different national responses, like Vietnam carving out a more independent, though still influenced, path.
And underlying it all is this context of China's own strategy. Maximize the population bonus, then pivot hard to an IT-driven economy as demographics shift.
A strategy that many in Southeast Asia are now watching very closely, perhaps trying to emulate in their own context.
Which creates this powerful linkage, shared strategies, tech transfer, capital flows, forming this, well, new Chinese cultural and economic sphere in IT across much of the region.
It seems that way, and it really poses a big question, particularly for other established players like Japan, doesn't it? How do they engage with ASEAN countries effectively in this new landscape where China's influence is so profound?
That's a key strategic question for them, certainly.
And maybe a final thought for you, our listeners, to ponder. What are the longer-term implications of this China-centric IT sphere solidifying in Southeast Asia? Think about global tech competition, the economic balance of power in Asia. How might these developments reshape our understanding of global markets and tech trends in the coming decade?